Okay, good morning, and welcome to UI5con 2019. I'm extremely proud and happy to finally be here. Yes, thank you. What a great day. Finally, it's come. You know, the last couple of days, as you can imagine, are usually quite hectic. We have to get everything ready and set up, so we are extremely happy that finally this day has arrived. And we have so many of you here in the room. So thanks a lot for coming. Thanks for taking time off work, traveling to come see us from really everywhere. That really means a lot to us. One of the things that I remember quite vividly was the day, this one Friday afternoon, 4 p.m. Waldorf time, when we started giving out tickets. And I checked in Twitter a few minutes later, basically, 35 minutes later or so, and we were already completely sold out. So that was absolutely overwhelming, really, really great support from everyone. And just all I can say is you guys are crazy, and we love you for that. Thank you. Having so many people wanting to join the conference means some people cannot join, right? So we tried at least partly to overcome this problem, and for the first time, we are broadcasting this very session live on our YouTube channel on OpenUI5. So I also welcome everybody who joins in internationally now on this format. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy that format as well. Besides this, we will also, for the first time, record every session in all of the rooms today. So we have upped a little bit the setup here in these rooms. That means that you don't have to worry in case you cannot make it to all of the sessions today. You can later on watch all of them again on our YouTube channel as well. Good, so that's something important for you guys to understand. All right, so before we get started, there's a few folks I want to thank first and foremost. An organization of this size, an event of this size is not easily organized, right? So we should take a moment to thank all of the folks who have spent countless hours during the last days and weeks and months to really make sure that this event can be held as is today. So give a huge round of applause to the organization team, to the crew that's today helping you through this day, to the staff of this venue. Thank you very much for helping us do this. Big round of applause to everybody. There's another group of people who's really important for a conference like this, and that is the speakers, obviously, right? And so they have spent also many, many hours, and I know some did some last-minute changes and tried to get everything set up just for today. So to all of the speakers, really a huge thank you. Without you, we could not have a conference like this. And besides the speakers, we have also had help from the community to select the right sessions. So these are some of the folks who helped us select in a jury, together with some colleagues from SAP, the best sessions for today's agenda. Yeah? So thanks to them, thanks to the speakers. Once again, give it up for them. Great job. Right. We also changed the format a little bit this year, and it's something that was new, and it allowed us to do some of the changes. We have sponsors for the first time for UI5con here in St. Leon Roth. The sponsors helped us to do the extra video recording to provide you with better catering throughout the day, a better evening event. So also thanks very much to all of the sponsors to help to continue to drive this event to the next level. Thanks very much to the sponsors as well. Good, and as I already said, after the day is through, there's two things I'd like to remind everyone. For the speakers in particular, please, during the closing of the day, please come up on stage. We would like to take a picture with all of you. We hope you can make it. And for the rest of you, we have a great evening event set up today. The weather is beautiful, so join us in the canteen over there. We will have food and drink and music and everything, so please hang out with us, chat with all of the others, make some friends, connect with the experts and everyone around you, and really enjoy this day. We are looking forward to having a lot of fun with you today. And without this and without any further ado, I'd like to open the UI5con 2019. Thanks for being here, and how best to open a conference than with an amazing keynote. And today we will hear the latest from UI5, where it is today, where we're heading in the future. So please welcome up on stage Stefan Beck, Chief Product Owner, and Müßig, Chief Architect of UI5. Thanks, guys. All right, it's your stage, take it away.
Okay, hi, and also welcome from my side. Welcome to the people here in the room, and also welcome to the people listening via our broadcast. And as Frederick said, you can also be, the people here in the room can really be happy to be here. So it was 18 minutes that you had time to register, and therefore I'm happy that you are here, and you can be happy that you are here. So we are all happy, and with that, let's start and have an amazing conference as of today. Good. Let's start directly with a project that is using UI5 to give you some insights. And I start with a picture that could already give you some indication about the project. But I admit it will be hard to already recognize what we are talking about. It's another hint would be back to the roots usually, but in this way we say back to the root. And another hint, we are currently on a mission to assist the inventors of the World Wide Web. And with that, it might come closer. The World Wide Web was invented in CERN, that's the European Organization for Nuclear Research in Switzerland. And we have an interesting project together with the colleagues. However, to start with that, also to give you an indication, how did it start? How did they get in contact with us? So Peter, what happened after the last UI5con 2018?
Yeah, so does it work? It was really quite a funny thing. So after the UI5con last year, I've been approached via mail, and it was a strange plain text mail having some words inside talking about root and so on. And it was for me like, okay, this looks like spam, delete. So I didn't really carefully look into it, and 2 weeks later, exactly the same mail came back, and I thought, okay, let's look into it a bit more in detail. And then I read root and CERN, and so it became more interesting. And yeah, this guy, Axel, he really asked me to join a root workshop, a workshop like a UI5con for their framework. And there I really went out and asked for the budget then, and luckily we got the budget for that. And I traveled there and really could present Open UI5, and we could start really a nice collaboration. And therefore we have guests today here from CERN and from GSI working with CERN. So, and I would like to ask Sergey to come on stage now.
Give him a round of applause. Thanks.
Hi, Sergey.
So, hi, Sergey. So, how did it come? Or maybe first start to explain a bit what root is about and what you are doing.
Thanks for inviting us here. And the root is in principle a big framework which developed in CERN and around CERN by a big community. We are a small team, but a big community around to serve different physics experiments, mainly in the CERN, but also a lot around the world. The root is a C++ framework, which mainly developed for the storage, for the maintenance of the large data sets, for analysis, but also for the visualization. If you take the data, you want to visualize them. And at some point, it was developed in the 90s. We are using the X11 and different platforms. There are also Windows, Mac, and so on. We need to change something, because this X11 is facing this end, and we decided to test a web application, and at some point we come out to the UI5, because from many opportunities we cannot find the same quality of the software and the same open software.
I think for you had quite some interesting pieces, and we mentioned this also here on the slides that why UI5 is so essential for you. It's being open source, and that's why we are all here.
Yes.
This is really interesting for us.
This is the most important for us. This is the most important because we are open community. We are physicists which are typically don't have much money, and even have a bad experience to using the commercial software. And this was a major really point for us and to use it. And the second is a long term. All our experiments, especially in the CERN, they are last for the 10, 20, 30 years, and we should take over and use the software which we developed maybe already 20 years ago. Therefore, the long-term support is very important for us as well.
Yeah.
Let me quickly jump in. So that is really one of the key advantages, you know that. So it's somehow open source, it's cheap, but also as we have as SAP commercial interests, it's also a long-term support and really a maintained product. So this was one, obviously, of the key aspects that you also recognized and also what you and the audience will know. Now let's look a bit technically. What was interesting in UI5 technically that you have then chosen to go with UI5?
Okay, first of all, it's a rich set of the components and the controls what are provided in the UI5 that in principle, if we are taking the framework, we would potentially get everything what we need to use, but also this model view control setup. It's really useful and we can benefit from it. We are not pure web-based. We are a lot of proprietary software, but we can benefit a lot from this model and use our own approaches to...
And also these data binding approaches and stuff, you mentioned that a while ago, that this is really beneficial for you, that you can really bind the model you bring from the backend immediately to your UIs on the client.
Yes. The major point of the root itself, it's a very powerful storage engine. The all data which are collected in the CERN are stored with the root, and we have also extra advanced features in the C++ itself, introducing our own C++ interpreter.
Yeah.
And
especially because you have really this mass data stuff. Yeah.
Yes, there are terabyte, petabyte of data which are collected in the CERN.
By the way, can you show one of these examples, what it did? Maybe?
Okay, we are on the beginning phase. There are a lot of software what was developed before in the CERN, but now we are start to migration to the web. And
here, this one.
Sorry. And here's one example. What we have is a picture of our okay. It's picture of our one of the detectors. Looks nice, but if I just try to show the dimension of this, one of the major CERN detector, it's about, if you see here, it's a centimeter degrees, about 30 meters here in this direction. Yes, it's a human being will be some of this size.
And I think the real challenge you had, Sergey, is really on the left-hand side also for the tree view, that there is millions of entries which should be, may come visible or can become visible here, but they should not be loaded for sure at once. You have this, this loading on demand, what we have added here. And this is really a benefit that you could easily plug that in.
Yes, okay. On the right side, it's our own visualization with WebGL, and on the left side is the OpenUI, what we are using here. And yes, what we are now investigating is organizing the hierarchy viewer, and just to show that we can find that this is our so-called geometry viewer, the geometry of our detectors. We want to navigate inside, detect what are some problems in these geometries, because are not sometimes not really shows the results one expect, and it's
very nice. So
yes, and I should admit we are in the beginning phase, and we are planning for the next upgrade of the experiments, also upgrading of the software which are control and display the data of these experiments.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here today, showing it. So,
thank you.
One second, okay, there's a small giveaway that we want to hand over to you, a small gaming machine that hopefully have a lot of fun with that, and thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Okay.
so, yeah.
Good. Now we have been back at the roots, so to speak. Now we go into the future, and the future is Fiori 3. So Fiori 3 is an evolution of the current SAP Fiori design to get again to a consistent and intuitive UI experience. You might wonder now why consistent. Consistent was a goal from Fiori 2 and Fiori 1 from the very beginning, and the consistency was mainly aiming to be consistent inside one of our major product being Business Suite, or nowadays S4. However, in the meantime, SAP has grown. We have not only grown organically, but also we have a lot of new acquisitions and company coming with their own products, their own UI technologies their own designs. And therefore, we had the need as a company to align that we can give you as customers a consistent experience, user experience in the intelligent enterprise, how we call that integrated product. And this has to do now first with a kind of a visual alignment, how do UIs behave, how do they look, to have a common look and feel. And it's also very important, we do not just for fun that they look the same and that they behave the same, but during business processes, you will touch, or as an end user will touch several of the products. And therefore, it should obviously behave similar, and also it must be integrated. You must be able to navigate from one product to the other, and therefore also the integration aspect is very important. And Fiori 3 has one important integration aspect called the integration cards that you will also see later on in a demo. So overall, the high-level goal is then to have the design for all SAP products. And to explain a bit more where we come from, so we started in 2013 with our first version of Fiori. We were targeting casual users, that means people who sometimes touch the system, and it was kind of self-service UIs like a leave request or workflow applications or approval applications, the quite simple master detail that you might recall from the former days. Then we evolved and came to the SAP Fiori 2.0 design, where we also embraced the power user, and then the real adoption in the bigger and flagship products like S4 started. And this is where we have roughly been in 2016 and then also continued. And now we are targeting Fiori 3, and I also give you already some reasons why and what is so important. And obviously, if you redesign, you also look, okay, what changed on top in the meantime? So from the UX paradigm, so the conversational UI became much more important, and therefore Fiori 3 also has answers to the conversational UI with Copilot. Also, machine learning became much more prominent, so the system has now intelligence, can make you proposals, can remind you, also can analyze situations and tell you what important things to look next. Therefore, also the integration of machine learning was now a key goal that we followed with Fiori 3. And now, to not talk too lot, and again, like at UI5con always, to show you a demo, please welcome Gargana on stage with a warm round of applause, who will give you a Fiori 3 demo.
Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you the new Fiori Launchpad. And just load. Okay, so as you can see, the new Fiori Launchpad comes with a...
Continue.
Thank you. The new Fiori Launchpad comes with the Fiori 3 subquartz, new subquartz theme. It has different colors, the new shell header bar, and also it comes with new features that when you click on the settings and you have to do some kind of action on the Fiori Launchpad, you're no longer navigated out of the view, and now it comes up in a new pop-up, which is really user-friendly. Also, the new thing to the Fiori Launchpad are the integration cards. And this is the new offering to UI5, because they're not a standard UI5 control, they're not a smart control, but they're something new. They're a whole new concept. Why? Because the idea behind the integration card, as Stefan said, for Fiori 3, we need to integrate different applications into one. And here, a card is a small representation of your application just at your fingertips. You just load the Fiori Launchpad and see the most important information from your application in one card. And as you can see here, this card from ordered products in your, let's say, shopping cart, and you see everything just on your home screen, on your central home. And if you click on some of the items, you may get navigated on your order status or wherever you need to go to. So, since the integration cards are a new concept, we decided they deserve a special place to live, and that place is the Cart Explorer. The Cart Explorer can be found in the demo kit in the tools section, so if you're interested, you can check it out later. Also, why are the integration cards so special? Because they're declarative, they're just defined by a manifest JSON, and yes, that's the manifest JSON that you know and love from UI5. They're consistent, they're compliant with all the Fiori 3 standards and design guidelines, and also they're easy to consume. Why? Because you declare a manifest JSON, as you can see here. This is the manifest JSON, and you consume it in your site, and you're done. You got the cart ready to go. Now let's jump into the Cart Explorer and see how it actually looks. Here is the Cart Explorer, and if you click on the Explore section, the Learn section is the documentation, which you must read before using the integration cards. In the Explore section, on the left-hand side, we see a rendered cart, and on the right-hand side, we see the manifest describing this cart. So what a cart consists of is, as I said, is the manifest JSON from UI5. So we have a subcart section that describes the cart. Inside it, we have a type that is declaring the type of the cart. In this case, it's a list cart. And we have other predefined types for you, list, table, and so on. You can check them out also. We have a header, which the header part of the manifest, which describes the header. And we have a content, which has a data, that is the data provided to the cart. It can be a simple request, that response can be a JSON and OData. So we work with JSON and OData, which is also cool. And we have the item, which represents one item from the list item. And now to see the power of the list cart, if we just change a simple thing like the highlight status of the list item to the title, you see everything is binded and re-rendered. Here you can play around with cards and create even your own with just 2 easy steps.
Maybe we switch it once back and that we can see.
Yeah, sorry, maybe it wasn't, if we do it like.
You have to look into the first line of these items then.
Sorry, it wasn't. So,
Yeah.
the first line of the item is comfort easy. Why? Because it's binded to the data model that we provided, the name of the first object, okay? And now we'll change it with the highlight, which in the first one is error, and if everything works okay, it should change to an error.
Cool.
Did you notice the difference? Thank you, that was the integration card.
Well done.
So thanks, Gargana. And as you saw, the cards are now an easy way that every SAP product can provide to be integrated in the Fiori Launchpad. The card itself are also richer than the tiles that you know formally. They can give you additional information, charts, we have various card types, and also in later renovation steps of Fiori 3, we can also bring some easy interactivity steps onto the card. So let's move on to the next topic. Next topic is the renovated Fiori UI stack, and you might also know and see from our timelines that UI5 was started quite early, then we built things on top. We invented smart controls to make people's life easier in the sense that you do not have to program everything freestyle, but you can use metadata from the server, use annotations there, and then we said, okay, maybe this is also not enough. Then Fiori elements were invented. That means we have complete floor plans and application that react to metadata, and everything happens over time. And there were innovation in between. That means Fiori elements at some places use much more modern framework features than our smart controls, and then things start to become inconsistent and not so optimal. That means on our way to improve again the architecture to get the best possible runtime behavior and performance, and also the best runtime behavior and usability for the end user. And we said on top, okay, if we start already, then let's also tackle the development efficiency for the Fiori application developers, being us all here in the room. So what we have done, we have said, okay, when we renovate the stack, you also usually need a trigger, and there was a nice trigger inside SAP that we do not want only to support powerful applications, power use applications, but also stateful applications. So the most used application in SAP system is the sales order create transaction, a very complex one. And this is so complex from a business logic perspective that it does not make sense to implement it in a stateless way. Therefore, we said we have now to enhance and to improve and to provide stateful Fiori applications. And you will see also the sales order transaction later on as the first user of this stateful behavior. And now if you start to renovate, you also see what you can do on top and what happened technology-wise, what you can use. And also nicely, the OData v4 protocol version was available on top of the v2 that we currently use in that Fiori element stack. And there are some really good advantages. So OData v4 supports cross-service navigation. That means you do not use these big, huge services and this adhered or attached huge metadata documents hampering the performance, but you can go with smaller services, navigate cross services, but also again will improve and helps improve the performance. The next topic is similar. OData v4 comes in the JSON format. So the JSON format, you all know that, can be handled much faster in a modern browser than XML because it's optimal to be processed there. It's JavaScript more or less. And obviously, this JSON format is much more compact and less verbose than the v2 format, so that also it's much smaller and we have less bandwidth consumption. On top, we have also the advantage that OData v4 supports special HTTP choreographies, and one important one is, for instance, that you can send asynchronous requests and get called back on completion. And also a lot of other round-offs, like for instance, a very, very nice and much better query language. And you know the SAP applications with this filter bars on top, they profit a lot of this built-in features in OData v4. So therefore, OData v4 was chosen. Then we said, okay, I just mentioned the smart controls as something that was built in an early stage. And then we said, okay, we introduced metadata-driven controls as a more generic concept. So the metadata-driven controls are, so to speak, the successor of the smart controls that understand and consume metadata. And we also directly build them now based on OData v4, but in principle, they are also protocol agnostic, what is a huge advantage. That means if there's a different protocol also able to provide metadata, you can still use this metadata-driven controls. Next topic is, in the past, there's smart controls and there's Fiori elements, nothing in between. That means in a freestyle app, you either use smart controls or nothing, or you use a complete Fiori element. And now, as we have all based on the same concepts, also Fiori elements are built of metadata-driven controls, and logically, also a Fiori element application is a metadata-driven control. That means we have everything in between, and also Fiori elements are built up of metadata-driven controls of a different call it size. And with that, we also have in freestyle applications then later on the option to reduce some parts of a Fiori element and not only the complete Fiori element application. So also a huge advantage helping to improve the development efficiency also for the freestyle app. And as said in the very beginning, we strive for faster UIs, better performance, overall much more consistency. And as you can see on the right-hand side, the overall stack, so there's not so much change. Basically, we start with the CTS view, then we have the OData service that also can add some annotations. We have the OData meta model and the Fiori elements on top. And then important to mention then, we have still the UI flexibility features that allow adaptations of Fiori applications by the developer, by the key user, and by the end user. And by the end user, we just call it personalization. And then overall, the result is the final XML view. And also to mention that, in the past, smart controls, they had a kind of an inner control tree. And it was not able to cache that inner control tree. Now, also the result of a metadata-driven control is a substructure of an XML view. That means once you have processed now such an application, you can completely push it into the cache. And if the metadata was not changed, and the end user opens the application a second time, there's no metadata processing at all. You can just render your view and get optimal performance. And also to show and visualize that, we have another guest. Please welcome Sebastian on stage, who will show you the sales order
Thank you.
application.
So let's keep fingers crossed. This is a lab preview. So great, right?
Oh.
So,
Okay, it's not a bug at least, so it's
okay.
It worked just before.
No. Great, right? Peter.
The video is in the bottom right. You see that icon, the quick view. Go right. Yeah. Quick time there.
Okay.
That's what you would have seen.
So, it's a lab preview, so therefore we don't have a complete stable version yet. But what we see here is when we create now the sales order in this application, we can now specify which order type we have, and then we'll have a look at the object page. And first of all, it looks quite similar to the V2 stack. That's because we want to keep the UX consistency between the V2 stack and the new renovated UI stack. And now have a look at when we enter the sold to party. So here we have a luxury goods company, and what you see is that lots of other fields automatically get pre-filled. That was possible in V2 as well, but it's now much faster and much easier and much better integrated in the solution. And it's not only fields, it's also the business partners that are automatically here pre-filled. And when we now switch to the items tab here, we'll also then quickly see a few enhancements. So have a look, when we enter the material, the value help immediately appears, and it's also based on many more values than just the single field. And when we now enter the quantity, we also brought in a quite interesting new features that we have the quantity and the unit together in the same field. So although being two different OData properties, we can have them here together. And have a look when we change it. You rarely see how the value got changed. It's so quick here. And also the net amount at the top is directly updated. By the way, you also find a nice graphic, a chart here in the header, to directly see the better visualization of the data here inside. Then you might wonder about the dev efficiency part that Stefan was just mentioned shortly. So let's check how we can create such an application and make sure that we are logged in and have no timeouts here. So we have in the web IDE the SAP UI5 Visual Editor. And the SAP UI5 Visual Editor was already there for quite some time. You can use it to modify your existing Fiori elements-based applications, and you can also use it to extend existing applications, something I will go in much more detail in a hands-on session directly afterwards. But before, you had two different tools when you want to modify your Fiori elements-based application. You had to define the annotations, the local annotations in the annotation modeler, and then went to the SAP UI5 Visual Editor to do UI property changes on top. And here, as a lab preview, I can show you that we worked hard together to provide you a much better integrated experience. So let's make it full screen here, and you see we have here a sales order application.
a bit simpler than the one we saw before. And we have the outline on the left-hand side. And when we now select, for example, here a column, the property panel will look a little bit different than what you might be used to. So we have now also the annotations here in the property panel. So we'll see that this column is based on the data field annotation. And when we increase the size here a little bit, we'll also have a look at the path to the corresponding OData property. So similarly, for net amount, we have a different one. And you have all the possible column type annotations available, directly integrated here into the tool in a then also in a WYSIWYG-like manner. If you want to know more about that, in the afternoon around 5, Christoph Golmig will give you a much longer introduction, a much deeper introduction, what will come here. But of course, not for everything it makes sense to have an OData annotation. For example, we saw in the sales order app that the object page behaved a little bit differently. It had more this icon tap behavior. And that's still possible with UI changes. So we have the control properties here. And now we have only those control properties of the object page listed that are recommended by SAP Fiori elements to be changed. So before, you had to go to the documentation and look that up. Now we can directly go in here and only have those available. And now let's switch the object page to this icon tab behavior. And we'll see it now here with the different sections and different tabs available. So here you see that we bring together the different parts of the puzzle for a much more integrated experience. The controls with the metadata driven behavior, the OData v4 handling, and the floor plans from Fiori elements, the annotation modeling, and the SAP UI5 flexibility mechanisms for a better dev efficiency. So with that, we have a much more holistic and integrated experience. Thank you.
Thanks, Sebastian. Good, going back to PowerPoint. And I really like that visual modeler, or visual editor, because you can call me at least a casual developer. And I have a hard time to understand these annotations. And now the visual editor helps me to find and to identify the annotations and to work with annotations. So I at least can now pretend to know a bit about it. So therefore, I hope you have the same experience. Good, let's move forward. This is now a topic, UI5 evolution, that you all know, or at least the people listening to the last year's UI5con know about. It's about continuously improving and innovating the UI framework, our tools and our programming model. And now, Peter, can you share a bit more what happened over the last year?
Yes, so I will do so. So let's start today with that, what we ended last year. When you remember how I ended the UI5con, I set some statements in 2018, and I asked you to stop using deprecated APIs. I asked you to master async and be progressive and orchestrate your code and declaring your dependencies. And it's not only that I asked you, it's also that we did that. And we used for that a reference application beginning of that year for an internal conference. I also would like to show that here, where we really applied the best practices from UI5 evolution, these UI5 evolution concepts. So the idea is that we take an existing SAP UI5 application, apply these concepts, evolutionize it, and run it on a Galaxy S7, which is a pretty bad device to run JavaScript applications. So what you see here is on the left-hand side, it's left, yeah. On the left-hand side, you see the reference application, the old application. On the right-hand side, you see the GL evolution, or we call it GL evolution here, the evolutionized application. And let's compare that. So we did it with web page test. So if you run it here, you see immediately the background is there and the app is coming after 2.9 seconds, whereas the old application took 5.1 seconds. So this was really one thing which was a great learning for us to see that such a performance optimization is possible with that what we have done over the last years. So I think that might be nice to have a round of applause. Many people did an incredible job to come to that. You know, we have these compatibility guidelines, and we cannot just disrupt your code, and this is really challenging and makes our brains burning a lot of times. So, but here, let's look into the performance gain. So the first paint of this application, this has been improved by 60%. That's what you have seen. It was really immediately, it was there. The initial load of the application has been reduced, depending on not cached or cached, by 40 to 50%. And the download size has been reduced by 30%. How all was that possible? So let's look a bit into the evolution story. So when you remember UI5con 2 years ago in 2017, there were a lot of sessions talking about this performance guide what we had, speeding up your application. So we thought in the beginning, yeah, this would be great to share all this information with you. But then we also started to write blogs. So last year we had Ant and I think Michael had here a session talking about asynchronifying your applications. And they wrote also this blog beforehand and so on. So after the UI5con 2018, we started much more to accelerate here to produce material. So we wrote in our documentation things about the modules and dependencies, talking about the AMD-like modules. We also started to explain the modularization in the core, what the team is doing here. And especially in the modularization, what we are doing here is we do this jQuery SAP replacement, so removing jQuery step by step. We are still in the middle here and continuing. But we have here started already to get lots of modules in separate modules externalized, this fine granular module set I talked about last year. And here in this slide, or in this documentation, you can find these replacements. So also, the factories, the component factory, view factory, have been replaced with a new factory name to avoid globals on the one hand side. Yeah, we need to sanitize that. And on the other hand side, there is also another point that we want to, by default, behave asynchronously. And these factories, the new ones, they will just work asynchronously. So everything what you have seen here is already available in the code base since 160. And I really would recommend you to come to that state. There is another thing that we continued also how our module loader behaved. You know, if a module in UI5 is loaded and you don't load it via the preload first, then it comes to a synchronous request. And also for that, we evolved our module loader in a way that it can also work asynchronously. It's explained here in the documentation. You can look later on. I share also these links, all these links here about that. And we have also compiled a checklist which needs to be fulfilled in order to say, yeah, my app is completely working asynchronously and I can launch it asynchronously. And it would be then a first step to come in a direction, for example, for something usage like a service worker and stuff like that. So all of that is then available upwards 161. And what we have is also a summary on the modular core. But these performance results, they would not have been possible just only with the modular core topic. There is another essential topic here which plays a key role, and it's the UI5 tooling. So let's look a bit into UI5 tooling. It's our CLI. Last year we had many sessions on that, talking about our build and development tooling built with Node.js so that we in-house and externally can use the same tooling so that it's not like we have internally Maven and you can have grunt and stuff like that and it's not working 100% correct. It's really to come to the same code base here and the same tooling to be used in both directions. And the other thing is for us that it's important that we do that open source like OpenUI5 is as well. For us, the key goal also behind the CLI tooling is that it's easily integrated in other editors and build tools. But it became also the standard build of the SAP Web IDE for application and frameworks. I think since 2 or 3 weeks it's now there. And this is really also great to see that, because then we have really locally, we have internally, and we have here in the Web IDE everywhere the same build. But there are some more kits on the block which we have recently worked on. There is the Karma UI5 plugin. So we had that before the Karma Open UI5 plugin. We renamed that and we optimized it for the UI5 tooling, thanks to that. And with that, the testing topic should now also be easier and we should have an answer on that. In addition to that, I would like to welcome Tobias on stage because we have here another tooling, the migration tooling. So if it comes to the migration tooling, you have seen all these documents. It's quite a hell to read it. And who else? I do it like that. Read the fucking manual. It's not my thing. I prefer to do hands-on. And therefore, I have Tobias with me. Show me what I can do with the migration tools.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. So looking at all those wiki pages and all of these documentation pages and blogs, it's pretty tedious being up to date. And what's even more tedious is to adjust your code base every time there's a new blog or a new documentation page out there. So therefore, we developed internally a tool called UI5 Migration. It's currently in the process of being open sourced. So that's the current state.
Yeah, it's still private, you see it on top, unfortunately. But it's hopefully reviewed soon and be public.
There's documentation with it and guidance how to use it. And let's directly jump into the tooling. So, what I have for demo purposes is the OpenUI5 sample app. And with a special migration branch, it's structured in such a way that you have the web app folder which contains the full app. And let's just see that the migration tooling is installed. Okay, it's there. It's working fine. And when looking at the help, most prominent and most important is the migrate command. So you run it against your app or multiple apps or even just folders which contain JavaScript sources. So therefore, I will run the migrate command, and I know there's the web app folder. And magically, it did something. And let's have a look inside what it did.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. So, I hope that's big enough. So, when looking at the control on the left-hand side, you see that it doesn't come along, or it has a renderer, but it's not loaded on demand. So on the right-hand side, the renderer is directly required, with the control being required, which means beforehand there was a synchronous blocking call which required the renderer, and now it's loaded asynchronously, which we are striving for. So another thing, what it did, it actually resolves these globals. So on the left-hand side, you see this sub.ui.core MVC controller. And as soon as it tries to load this controller, this will also trigger a synchronous call. Because it doesn't know the controller, so it will load it. And with that, we changed it. We put it up there in the require block. And this is the AMD style of loading the controller asynchronously as soon as this module is required. And therefore, it's also properly replaced. It's put into a variable called controller and then used in the whole file. Another cool thing is actually the libraries or the control libraries, because they contain, for example, the core library contains this title level. It's an implicit module hidden within the library, and now we made it explicit, such that the library itself is required and the title level is just assigned to a variable. And last but not least in this file, you see here a jQuery subscript include, and might be wondering where it's used. So when scrolling down, okay, you see here this jQuery sub extend call. And we analyzed that and identify, okay, there's actually a native call from the browser which can be used, and which is the object assign. And it's way faster, and you don't require another module.
And I think there's this last one thing in this complete old file.
Exactly, and last but not least, so you have, on the left-hand side, you have this old deprecated jQuery sub declare syntax. It's still working, but it's not the latest AMD style. So therefore, this left-hand side represents an old module, and we directly completely replace it and make it a new, nice module.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. Thank you.
Maybe just one small comment on top to close the loop. I think you have seen the performance improvements in that GR lineup and application, and our vision is that the migration tooling together with the build tooling gives you that performance improvement. So it was not a rewritten application, but an application that was changed to adhere to the concepts what the migration tooling and the build tooling together will help you to get to. So this will come out of the box, and you can even do more optimizations, and also Peter will talk about that quickly.
Yeah.
The point.
Do I? I want to continue now with the tooling on what is also possible here. So the tooling has also been evolved in a direction that we want to open it up in a way that you can extend it on your own. So we thought about, and you have seen that maybe a while ago, this task extensibility, which really allows you to plug in your own tasks into the build tooling to do some job, like maybe transpiling or so. And on the other hand side, we are working and about to roll out the middleware extensibility to integrate also something like a proxy, for example, in the UI5 server middleware. So with that, we want to come to a new kind of ecosystem with the UI5 tooling, with the UI5 stuff. It's all about, for me, I would say, if we want to accelerate with our innovation in a faster manner, we need to do that together. We cannot be the bottleneck at UI5 for you, for the community, for us all. We need to evolve this ecosystem really completely together. And in the past, it looked like that. We had this UI5 in the middle, that's it, and we were asked for features, but this is not only truth, and I would expect that also others can do something around. For example, colleagues from the Web IDE did TypeScript support for UI5. So they have open sourced the project, the UI5 TypeScript, in order to allow to use the TypeScript definition for development. I just briefly show that because we are running out of time, I see. And let me go to this one and use the TypeScript definition one. So what comes with that is that you now, in the imports, for example, you get an auto-completion, and you can select some of the controls, even if it's outdated, just for your purpose. You see that it works, that you can really select things. And the other cool stuff about that is that you can really then import these controls in that way, that you have the type definitions locally, you can use it locally, you get also all this information here being displayed, and this information is coming from our JavaScript documentation, what we generate nevertheless, and what is also available in the demo kit. And this is all available here inside and helps you then to write your code for your application. So all with that, this is really a nice thing. You can also look into the other aspect of the TypeScript support, like type validation. So example, if I enter set text and it expects a string, but I enter an integer, you get that feedback that you should correct it. And this is exactly that value, what is behind this TypeScript integration, and why I'm so happy about that. This is not only driven by UI5, it's coming also from our internal community, and I would really encourage you to not only that it's an internal thing, it can be also broader. We can do things on top. We can have the ES6 stuff via transpiling. I showed it how it can be done with task extensibility in a little project. And by the way, as a side note, since UI5 164, we have the ES6 polyfill, the ES6 shim in the UI5 code base, so you can use that functionality. So it means 80% of this ES6 API, which is polyfilled, can be used. Other things I would also see, and I know, so we have Christoph here, he will also today say something about the integration of OpenUI5 and Webpack. So, and there is more in the community I would see, and maybe also we see today how this interaction with other technologies and frameworks looks like. So let's build this ecosystem. And with that, I would come back to the challenges of a modern web stack today, because we are now going into the rendering layer. So as of today, the web stack, or let's say 5 years ago, we had a really small standards web stack, and we had to build lots of things on our own. That's why UI5 grew and why also other frameworks grew in the past. Nowadays, we have a really solid foundation of web standards in the browser, and we don't need to build something for that. It just comes out of the box. It also comes with a 0 kilobyte of footprint, which is good for performance. And we said, on our perspective, we are really interested in renovating rendering controls last year. That was one of the outcomes in the keynote. And I said at that point of time something like, yeah, maybe we do a light-weight control and plug it in UI5, and a light-weight control can plug it into the web components. But now we decided to go really full standards as browser stack evolved, as we have seen with Edge and all that stuff. So the new heart of UI5, and this is something what we want to do, is to shift our UI element definition layer into something standards-like, and these will be the web components. So let's look into UI5 web components. So for us, we call that the enterprise flavored sugar on top of native APIs. Polymer says the syntactic sugar, and we have this enterprise flavor with it because we bring in all these enterprise qualities. When we think about what UI5 web components are for us they are really something where we can share and transport the UI5 qualities, that's what you know from the controls, now as something standards with the web components. And with that, we ensure consistency, because web components can be easily used by others in the framework. So, and this allows us really, that's what I said already a bit, due to the web standards, we can easily be integrated in something like React, Angular, Vue, or whatever. And this is really a clear advantage of that. All in all, we also did a rework of the complete architecture for the UI5 web components. So we made it really small in order to not have a huge footprint with that. And we are targeting not for the application developer here, it's more the web developer. Application developer is classically only working with the UI5 control trees, and the web developers, they want to work with the HTML elements. So, and this is what web components are, and therefore I have also Ilhan here. He will show you the web components in the current state.
Thanks, Peter.
Welcome.
And hello, everyone. So, as Peter said, the UI5 web components are here. But how can you get started with them? For the purpose, we've built a beautiful playground that I want to show you. It's really the central place where you can find all the component samples and API reference. This is the landing page, so providing just short info what this is all about. And you can continue by pressing the Get Started button and to the main content. And immediately on the left-hand side, you can see the list of all web components that are available now. We have around 30, which is quite a number. But let's check out one of our components, the date picker. It's the coolest web component, my favorite, because it's so rich and it's very complex. But the coolest part is that you just want to write this tag, UI5-datepicker, and it's done. We have several examples in this section. You can copy and paste code if you want, try it in your app. Or if you're interested, you can jump to the API reference. For each component, we have a quick overview explaining what the component can do. And as all components come with built-in keyboard handling, we also have a dedicated section explaining what keyboard combinations are possible. And of course, all the properties or events are listed, so just try it, it's really cool. And on top of that playground, we wanted to build a Fiori tree app. Because we needed also to validate how the web components work in other frameworks. And we picked up React for our use case, and we built a Fiori tree app with React plus UI5 web components. So this is the homepage of the application, and all the components that you can see are UI5 web components. And namely, shell bar on top, tab container just below, and multiple cards and lists in the main content. We also use the React routing, so if I click on this card header, yeah, I'm navigating to a really nice details page that also have some complex layout control here.
Yeah, during this development with React, we faced some issues, right? So it was not so...
Issues?
No, issues in... Maybe it was not so... Not about the web components, for sure.
Ah, okay.
It's really, it was mainly about how to use them in React. There are some things you have to know for that.
In general, the development experience was pretty good. We can build such an app very fast, but we found out that React has some difficulties in handling web components in general, not only with ours. And we had to add some more code, cumbersome code, around the event handling, Boolean properties handling, and also the code completion is not available out of the box.
But we have an answer for that, and we have someone here in the room. Really?
Yeah.
And we have someone here in the room, Markus Notheis. He can show us what they have done to build a proper wrapper for React. Hey, Markus.
So, thanks, Peter, and hello, everyone. Yeah, as already mentioned, the UI5 web components are really great, but I think we can do even better when it comes to React. So I've prepared a little demo for that, and what I want to achieve is I have a button in my demo, and on click I want to increase the respective counter. So I've prepared this button here, and you can see it's the UI5 web component button with the press attribute and an attached event handler. But if I now click on the button, nothing happens. This is due to the fact that React isn't handling custom events at the moment in its current version, so we have to find a workaround for that. So let's attach a reference to the button and assign it to the button ref. But then we have to wait for the component mount lifecycle, check if the button is really there, and then attach our event handler manually. If we now click on the button, we see the counter goes up, but in my opinion, that's quite cumbersome, and I think we can do better. So let's try with the UI5 web components for React. We can import the button from here, add any text we want. And here you can see the first powerful feature, which is IntelliSense. So we see a list of all available props on the button, can choose the onEvent attribute, and assign our, without any typos, then it works. And assign our button press handler here, and we can see the counter goes up without the need of writing any boilerplate code. But now let's go one step further. Imagine we want to disable the button in case the counter is greater or equal than 3. So therefore we can use the disabled prop of the web components and add the corresponding statement right here. But what's now happening? Unfortunately, the button is directly disabled. This is due to the fact that React has a somehow strange handling of Boolean attributes when it comes to custom elements. But now let's try with the UI5 web component for React again. Again, we can use IntelliSense to see the disabled prop, and we just add exactly the same line here. The button is enabled. I click it 3 times. Now it's disabled, and that's perfectly fine and what I want to achieve.
Wow, very nice.
That's everything already from my side.
Yeah, Marco, thank you. So with that, we have seen also this open source project here. It's like web components and like this project, both are open source. Try it, give feedback, and I think you would be also happy to see some people using it and get happy with that.
Yeah. Okay, so thanks Markus for the demo, but also thanks a lot for improving UI5 web components further in providing the framework around it. So give a round of applause.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Good. Now coming quickly to one look into the timelines. We started to talk about web components in last UI5con. It was kind of an alpha state, or we showed you more or less a POC. Then we kept promise to go open source and provide it as beta version in February 2019. And now also quite good news, the UI5 components have now been released today as release candidate 1 while we sit here and have our keynotes. So a round of applause to the team in Sofia. So it's now ready. Take it serious. APIs, we consider them as stable. Still, if we now get serious feedback from you, we might adjust one or other thing, but we want to keep it minimal. Therefore, we gave it a release candidate 1. However, if the feedback is positive, we then also can declare public availability. And Peter, as we are short in time, I more or less directly give back to you to talk about the evolution of control rendering.
Let's briefly start with that one. So we did not only evolution on the core and on the tooling side, we also did evolution for our existing UI5 controls. And there is one thing what we have been asked very often in the past, it was about our way of rendering, which is quite weird for the people. So we have a statement. We go to DOM-based rendering with UI5. And for that, I have Jahid here coming on stage, who will present you how this works. So essentially, the topic is here really to increase the performance and the maintainability. If you have written UI5 controls by your own and wrote custom setters, you know that this is extra code. Extra code means load. It means performance decrease. It means also that you have to keep code in sync, which is maintainability-wise bad. So all this will be tackled with this semantic rendering, we call that, where we adopt the rendering syntax to get more information out of that, to know what has been changed in the controls markup. And on the other side, we are also exchanging the rendering engine or enhancing the rendering engine to work with the old renderers and the new renderers in parallel, and to especially increase the frames per second in order to come to really quite cool rendering performance for UI5. With that, it's your turn.
Thank you, Peter. You already mentioned increasing the frame per second, and I'm sure that all the audience is wondering for the numbers, right? So before I show you the numbers, I would like to take your attention on the right-hand side of the slides. So here you see that the control structure.
What?
Yeah. So you see a control tree here on the right-hand of the slide. And the one that is marked with the V2 is indicating that our new rendering engine is used by this control, and the V1 is saying that we are using our old rendering technology, which is a string-based rendering. So what is actually important here is they can work together within the one control tree. This is very important that you can convert your controls into new one in side by side, so they are able to work together. What I mean with the string-based rendering is when something is changed with the control, let's say the V1 on the that here is invalidated, then the rendering will be started. When something is changed on this control, we will render it. And during the rendering time, we will take the DOM output of the control from the DOM tree, including all the children here that you see, and then we will call the renderer of the control that you see here on the root node, but all the children as well. And this is the problem. What you see on the V2 is we can do a granular rendering. So we don't have to look and try to render the children at that moment. So that will bring us a lot of power and the performance. So let me just show you. So what you see here on the screen is not a CSS animation. So this is an 200 control are using string-based rendering, and they are within the endless loop. Their properties are changing, and this is the causing a re-rendering, and this is the way you see that they are animating actually. And we are using here a string-based rendering. And the problem with the string-based rendering is not only about that we render its children, but it's also what if happens if the focus is on this node. Then the focus will be lost if you just remove it from the DOM tree. And what will happen to the scroll position? And what will happen to the DOM node that is removed? It's objected to the garbage collection that will lose time. And actually, what we offer here is the DOM-based rendering. And UI5 also had a solution for it that you can write your custom setters. But if you write your custom setters, you are increasing the maintenance that, as Peter mentioned, that you would like to write your control representation only in your renderer, not in the behavior file. If you do that one, then you are increasing the maintenance. If something changes in the renderer, you have to remember that you need to update your behavior as well. So this is, and if after you do that, we increase the code volume. Please remember that this is something we have to deliver our customer, and our customer has to download this one. It has to be parsed and executed, right? The fastest code is the code that does not exist. So we are trying to get rid of these codes from the controls that they never need to write any custom setters for DOM updates. And this is our purpose. So let me see. This is string-based rendering, as I mentioned. What you see on the left-hand side is the 30 frames per second around. And let me show you the new rendering engine. Let me enable it.
Maybe for the sake of time, we enable that to showcase the performance. So let me quickly do that. So this one. So maybe you know that here and can explain that this is the old rendering syntax to make it really brief because we have the next session starting soon.
Okay.
And we also see a bit more down, we have an incremental DOM-like API, which is in here. And we now disable the old renderer via this underscore, enable the new API version 2 renderer using this new rendering syntax.
Which helps us to understand the context of the control DOM node that we are using for diffing and also for skipping the unnecessary controls to be rendered.
And now if you reload, and this is really the cool thing, have you seen before, maybe not the one in the back, but the one in the front, we came from 30 FPS with string-based rendering to now 60 FPS with a DOM-based rendering. And for that, it's really cool what has been done here. So, thank you, Shahid, and sorry for that pressure here now, because the other sessions will start. Just to really briefly sum that up, this new rendering stuff, this is for us also the possibility to integrate our web components back in UI5. Because when we come from string-based rendering, we always throw the DOM ref away. And now we keep it, and with that, it's easily possible to use also inside the markup of the renderer these web component tags. So let's continue. Stefan, maybe
So I was, as you said, supposed to talk about focus topics, but looking on the time, the focus topic now is already coffee break. So I'll make it really quickly. So as we talked about Fiori 3, and Fiori 3, internally we have the phase 1. We will continue to invest. And also, as Peter outlined already in the UI evolution, there's a lot of other things to do around asynchronous APIs, about modularization, getting really rid of jQuery in the core area. We will definitely now make this renovated UI stack mass adoption ready, first for Fiori elements, and once this is done, we will also then enable it for freestyle applications. And as last topic that you just have seen, obviously the web components, the GA of the web components and the enhancement will be an ongoing focus investment, so also in the next year.
And now it's your turn, yeah? If you give. It's really learn and apply these evolution concepts. The migration tooling will be there soon to help you. There is also this step to migrate the renders. You have seen what's possible. Help us. With 167 of UI5, it's in. There is also the ask to help you to extend this ecosystem. We should make and prosper that. And finally,
now it's time to
enjoy UI5con coffee break.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So.